Okay, it's May 3rd, 24. We're in engineering, knowledge engineering / education. We will get to discussing the upcoming ISSS DC workshop. However, first we have some points and updates about archiving. So anyone make any general comments, or Rob share what
Well,
precipitated our
let me
earlier
start.
discussion? Yeah.
Let me just start on two thoughts. One, when I was president-elect and president of ISSS, I made a point of working with Jennifer Wilby to collect and further digitize as many of the ISSS resources as we possibly could, and bring them and put them online in a way that was accessible for members and make it as a benefit of membership, and to put it behind a paywall, for want of a better term, on a website, which is what now exists at ISSS.org. Some large part of that is only accessible if you're a member. I'm also involved in an archiving project with ASC, with the American Society of Cybernetics, looking at cybernetic archives. And they have a number of different archival locations, physical locations, one being at the University of Illinois and one being at the University of Vienna. And as a result of some of that conversation, we've been looking at where else there might be opportunities to put archives for the American Society of Cybernetics, and exploring current possibilities at Binghamton, their School of System Sciences, and also here in the Washington, D.C. area, with possibilities at George Mason University or George Washington. And this sort of relates to the broader context of ISSS as well. I've got some bits and pieces in my basement. ISSS does not have an institutional academic home. And we know that Len Troncali for many years was executive director of ISSS, and as a consequence has many documents in his office that he's had for many, many years. And Rob and Luke, hand it over to you, Rob, to just say a bit more now about Len Troncali's materials and what's going on there, and how this committee essentially of ISSS, being the education and knowledge engineering, could and should perhaps take a role.
Okay, thank you, Peter, and thank you to this knowledge engineering and education group, which is looking after the interests of not only the ISSS archives, but the history of systems, because the ISSS goes back so far. So the item that I just wanted to bring to the attention of this group is the office at Claremont in California that Len Troncali ran for the last few years, where he collected a lot of the systems material. Now, a few months ago, Luke Frencher and myself went to the office because the intention is to close down that office in a few months' time. And we catalogued, basically our task a few months ago was to catalogue the contents of the office so that we could find how to place them, any valuable material in good homes, or put them into storage, or some other aspects. And so in the course of that, we found that there's a substantial amount of material which Len collected from members and other archives on behalf of the ISSS. And I'll share a screen now, which is a picture of the bookcase where he collected together most of this material. And it roughly divides into general systems bulletins, general systems yearbooks, and the conference proceedings. Now, most of this has been successfully digitized by various initiatives within the ISSS, of which Peter Tudlin was part of. But the question remains with this physical material, and we do not want to lose this, because some of them have annotations and some of them have historical comments in there, and the materials themselves are valuable. So I brought this to the attention of the group, and we can open it up because this group is interested in archiving, but the intention is for this to go to somewhere safe And we are now exploring a number of options that Peter has had connections with, and a few other people are volunteering to store them on a custodial basis for the interim period, just for safekeeping into the future, whilst the custodianship and the ownership of the material is resolved. So that's the item that I'm bringing to the attention of this group.
Thank you. Anything else we should discuss other than I would just say the general sentiment that one of our functions or roles here is to support archiving the physical and the digital materials that are relevant, especially focused on ISSS documents, and then also just through Rob's work with SCA that broadens, and also like everyone here has also outside of ISSS, like they see opportunities for archiving and making the materials more accessible and useful today and everything. So there's a physical side to that. And if the rate limiting steps are a drive or a garage, then that's pretty doable. And on the digital, it's a larger task, or at least a different one. But I mean, we continue to work on that collaboratively too.
George mentioned something about the chain of custody, which I think is an important point. And if I didn't mention it in my little preamble there, I have been talking with the University of Illinois, who have the records of Heinz von Forster and their biological computing lab, and then there is a lot of cybernetic records at the University of Vienna in Austria. So anyway, how we bring all this into more coherent arrangements on a global international basis is part of, I think, what we should be thinking about as systems people.
So we can take immediate action because that office is going to get closed down and something needs to be done. We will keep the chain of custody. Boy, yeah, we'll keep that well known. And what I would suggest is that we also get one of the senior board members involved in this so that they're at least apprised of what we're doing, but also can give some thought to what may need to be done to resolve the ownership.
Yeah, and in respect of Len Troncali's work, let me also just add in there for the record, Len has over the years been putting some material on lentroncali.com, and I was worked with Mick Ashby last year in a sort of urgent call by him to me to preserve the Ashby records, which he'd put together on a website. And so I acted on behalf of ISSS to move what he'd done to an ISSS server and put the domain ashby.info on it. You know, there may be some case to examine what's on lentroncali.com and to see if you see who's going to maintain that and how, and is it appropriate that ISSS take some initiative. So I just put that to this group, and maybe Daniel, as a board member, you could perhaps summarize this conversation at a board meeting, or bring it to the attention of both Jennifer Wilby and Jennifer McCarr, and also current president Michelle Friend and Gary Smith as the president-elect, who should be taking some position on this. And also, I suppose George and I are on the board of trustees, and this could be a topic, as the trustees are there to sort of look at legacy issues. We could and probably should bring it up to David Ing, who is the trustees representative on the board as well.
Yeah, as kind of alluded to, like while we must take advantage, if that's even the right word, of these kind of windows of opportunity that we have, and responding and to the physical and the digital things so that nothing is just permanently lost. I think we also can learn from those experiences and start to develop more of a comprehensive service so that we can proactively steward these large bodies of work. There are many undigitized physical objects. Digitizing alone is not even close to making something accessible, especially considering that in like the fuller like ownership and legal senses. It's not just about getting a scan. Some of those details can really only be resolved in the present with the limited time that many of these people are still here. So maybe that can be one of the components for us to explore in our workshop. How do we really build and mobilize this? Like Buckminster Fuller has the chronophile at Stanford. Now it's not actually at Stanford. It's in climate controlled facility in the East Bay. There are climate controlled facilities for storing things that are not wildly costly, depending on the space. Having a kind of documented donation opportunity for people's collections so that nothing just gets kicked to the curb sounds like something that we should offer, even if we have to kind of bridge the physical location with like a garage. And then analogously with websites, I mean, as soon as someone's credit card could change and then the website's gone. It's like it can just happen overnight with resources no longer being available and links being non-stable and not stationary. So I think these are major topics to consider in about a month from now.
Yep, I would echo that as well. And then we have actually talked on various aspects of these topics in the last 2 years. The whole range from building a community-wide repository covering all of the major, systems and cybernetics and complexity fields. It's part of the maturing of ourselves as a community and as a domain. To build up this domain level repository. I know Peter's already starting to pull that together within the cybernetics communities, which is not just limited to cybernetics, it's reaching as far as field as anybody is interested. So yeah, it is all about saving the history and making it accessible and maturing as a field. I think somebody mentioned the Bertalanffy Institute in Vienna. One of the goals maybe of physical repositories on each continent is that we can start to develop areas for scholarly exploration, because there's a lot of these archives of life works which can be mined for unpublished ideas and information. It's already being lost in some senses. Websites are being lost and material is being lost. So hopefully we are gathering momentum, and this group here has been instrumental in pulling a lot of that together. So it is looking a bit quite hopeful for the future, I feel.
That makes me think about the SCA and the spreadsheets there as kind of like the decentralized library index card system. You're kind of like building the interlibrary loan before there are libraries, or coming to the libraries where they already are. So that first we have the bibliographic layer to just what are the index cards. That can be, and then we can pursue each of those records individually. And maybe some we hit a dead end here, maybe some we get all the way through securing the material, perhaps digitizing it and not releasing it because of the ownership aspects of the work. However, in 100 years, those kinds of restrictions may or may not even apply. So we have to at least secure the records, and then the primary material, which also, as mentioned, I mean, this can have like marginalia and comments and just like DNA, all these kinds of interesting things that we want the physical objects and history for.
Yeah, it's very important. The University of Illinois are moving to some software called Atom, and there's some open source archiving software for this group, which is well respected within the archiving community. I've been learning quite a lot about archiving communities, but that's one piece of open source software that can be used in physical and digital recordings. For what it's worth, but that's probably down the line a bit for what we're talking about. I think probably good in the time we've got left to talk a little bit about how this impacts what we're doing or what you're doing, or the paper or the abstract's been submitted for the conference in June. Daniel, if you want to say some more about that.
Let's think of, so we yesterday I think received, well just last point there, Dave, also if you're listening, has a long-term interest in text storage, and it levels and layers of text documentation I didn't even know were possible. So let us continue to learn and do what we can at the Institute, and see what other like services we can provide here or there. Okay, so yesterday we heard back that our abstract was accepted. I went with a shorter title. We all know that it's just a it has a merotopological relationship to the longer title, but we'll go with a shorter one. Last week we briefly had some discussions around like we're not likely to say prepare a lecture. We have a 90-minute interactive session. We want to balance the interactivity and emergence with being prepared, not being constraining in our preparation. So I think this is a question of how we even want to think about our workshop session. We can I mean, yeah, what do we want to do? We will have some online and some in person. So I expect that we could maybe make a shared document, like a new coda, and make that editable. Okay. Do you want me to copy these comments in, George?
It's up to you. I just wanted to double check something I remembered in the bylaws with regard to the prior topic. So I'm just putting that there for you guys.
Yeah, I don't know what the status of you know bylaws and norms and all this, but let's just get it in there. Interesting. mixed, real, personal, or mixed. Sometimes when you go into the real logic of these clauses, it's incredible what it says. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, good. Good.
No, I was just going to say the ISSS lawyer, retained lawyer, is the one who blessed the bylaws. So there's at least some legal eyes on this.
Okay. Okay. We've taken some notes, but perhaps we could have some driving questions, like an initial phase with driving questions. And those, we could pose the question, and then we could provide we could give the authors could give 30 seconds to 1 minute on their thoughts on that question. Meanwhile, people could be adding asynchronously to the document in that question. And then we could, we could have like three or five questions of 10 minutes each to kind of maybe so to solicit so just to kind of summarize some of our directions in terms of questions like
Well, it might be a sub question under that I was thinking about, is asking how is education best facilitated in terms of how knowledge is organized?
okay, so this is kind of this is sort of a theoretical question. How can we actually start grounded in system science with different views on the relationship of knowledge and education? This is a practical / people's experience question. Another practical question is we could say related to the archiving and legacies. Like, for example, not everyone may even know of the SCA's activities. They may not know that there are broader or again, any of the other archival works that people here are doing. Like, people may not realize that there are active ways to help with archiving. I think it will be successful if we can if we can say people here's why it matters and why you should care about archiving, knowledge engineering, education, how those are all connected. Here are some of the tools approaches, ongoing efforts, people who are doing this daily. So if that has stoked your appetite to actually do this work and contribute in this way, don't reinvent the wheel. Here's where you can actively start getting involved. Or if you are already involved and you want to have more visibility for your work, or if you want to share what you've learned in those for the service of others, then let's also have that space.
Is there, will there be some discussion in the paper on the opportunity for increasing the formal and immediately mineable interdisciplinary structures, analogical structures that are largely invisible because of interdisciplinary boundaries? I'd suggest that if mathematics had suppressed awareness of the analogies among different branches of math, say from number theory to elliptical function theory, it would have taken Andrew Wiles decades instead of years to prove Fermat's last theorem. That is, he wouldn't have lived long enough. Because for sociological reasons, the exploitation of rigorous analogies has been favored in math. That has massively accelerated that field, but that hasn't been the case of all disciplines, and there's nothing content-wise blocking a much expanded exploitation of those in fact existing analogies and metaphors.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, and is probably at the heart of the intention of the founders of the society, and suggestions along those lines to do more, I think, would be helpful for current members, if not the wider community writ large.
Think here, yes. So yes, well, this is just a workshop, but we could say, well, we could do. There's several fun things we could do. One would be in the template document for the hybrid participants. We could have like an authorship page, and we can go, at the end of this hour, we are going to publish this paper with all the authors. So then we just publish that snapshot version V1, just like, this is how fast you can publish now. There are no gatekeepers for this kind of publishing. Who wants to co-author? Then we could also assess interest in writing a more fleshed work, kind of improving what we get to at the end of the session, or a subset of it. But I mean, I see this as in terms of facilitating education. So education broadly being as the aspects and all this, just ranging from children, larval education, to super narrow technical advanced education in the existing areas. How can we use formal and concise, consolidated methods of analysis and leverage the statistical techniques like the language models? But having this as a kind of corollary under the heading of facilitating education through the organization of knowledge. Like, what kinds of annotations do we need to make so that somebody could do citation walking through metaphor? Or what are the real digitization and legal hurdles associated with compiling all the metaphors used by a writer. And then if we have a total list of the hurdles, not that it's the total list, but if the people who are there agree that that list summarizes the hurdles to a given functionality, then like we kind of have our spec or our roadmap for just taking that and saying, okay, now for each of these hurdles, what do we do about them?
I've been trying to feel for the heart of the abstract that's been submitted, and what's jumping out at me is the terms intersection and integration of the knowledge engineering and the educational initiatives that have been going on within the ISSS. And I'm trying to conjure up the major activities that we've done that exemplify that intersection and integration. And the AI as an intersection point for accessing in new ways the knowledge engineering components, and in ways which could be creative and educational, seems to be a standout in the last year or so. So I'm wondering if that's a significant component of this 90-minute workshop, is some AI aspect. Because what are we trying to do here to revitalize people's interests in all the good work that's been going on, not only in this group but in the wider and growing community. So I think AI is one of those, and then the second one, which is never gets the limelight, is the solid engineering that's going on underneath to try and pull together all the components needed for the AI to access, in terms of saving the knowledge and digitizing it and working through all the access paths to make it, as you say, the walkthroughs for researchers and the use cases. So I'm just trying to develop some sort of enticing themes that could maybe one or two within that 90-minute period that would make use of the skills of the people that are going to be there, either physically like yourself or online like the rest of us. So that's just what's going on in my head at the moment as we try and sort of brainstorm this.
Okay, so we have several weeks to sketch it out further. I think if we get to a point of having a template document with the kind of scheme for the session and some tables and fields and open pages, with some high level goals / preferences, and I think we'll be on track to have a good setup for June.
I'm I'm going to be giving that Berlamphy talk, so I may not be as contributory to the text other than maybe review and critique or something like that.
No, but what you could do in your thinking about Bertalampi talk is to make reference to what we've been doing here in some way, and make the connection to, Bertalampi and the founding ideas and how it's evolved.
I will definitely give that some thought, Peter, but I've got a theme that I've already worked up, and I'm trying to develop that. Where it touches on what we're doing here is in my ontology part, talking about the relationship of information and knowledge. So I'll give that some thought as to how to do that.
I do see GST as the missing unifying piece or foundation stone for knowledge, engineering, and education. So I can definitely see a connection there.
Yeah, my theme is, it won't be disappointing, but it's going to be a little bit different than talking about GST. In fact, the title, let me bring it up. The title is A General Theory of Systemness, parentheses, not systems. And then I go on to explain why I think that change of perspective to think about the attributes of systemness as opposed to just trying to fit it into one lexical box is a more appropriate way to approach general ideas. So
Great.
we'll see what kind of a reception that gets.
All right. Well, great. I will put the recording of today in this link, and we'll reconvene next week to sketch it out a little further.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, fellow.
Thanks.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you all.